What a disaster.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast Reaction Edition as Auburn falls to Texas A&M 16-10 in College Station, and does so in, I don't really know any other way to describe it, but in embarrassing fashion, especially on the offensive side. It's hard to imagine that a top 10 road opponent in the SEC, you only lose by 6 points and you feel like you lost by 30. We'll talk about all the general thoughts around that. Can it be fixed? And just another wasted, epic defensive performance. We'll jump into that in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to Rhoback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. I got my gray new Auburn licensed apparel hoodie on today. I had my Navy one on yesterday. They got tons of good Auburn stuff. So check it out. Save big. It's Rhoback.com. I don't know really where to start, if I'm being completely honest. I think I'm just going to say a few things before we really dive into the game. But we have a decision to make right now. I have a decision to make right now. I can be honest, which I am going to be honest. I'm going to tell you how I feel. Or I could just go and I could just go completely negative, fire everybody, bench everybody. And hey, the problem with that is we got 7 games left. We got a long season left. I don't think anybody wants to hear that. I don't think anybody wants to listen to that on a daily basis. So I'm going to try to do my best to be fair and give you my 100% honest opinion, no fluff. But at the same time, try to talk through ways that maybe Auburn can turn this thing around and not just go completely off the deep end. So with that being said, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say this is one of the worst offensive performances that I can really remember. As far as Auburn's football goes, I think you got to go back maybe to some of those Jeremy Johnson games, Kyle Frazier games in 2012. Hate to just put them on blast like that, but it was awful. It was hard to watch. It was discombobulated. It seemed unorganized. You continue to have just the terrible, untimely penalties. All on the offense, almost every single one of them on the offense. I got to dig in. I don't know that the defense even had a penalty. I think almost all of them were either holding, procedure penalties. We had 2 guys in motion at one point in time. The offense was a complete disaster. 125 yards passing, 52 yards rushing against a defense that just quite frankly is not good. They're not good. I don't care what anybody says. I think even they'll tell you they're not good. We will play many more defenses that are vastly more talented than the defense. Let me take that back. Not talented. They got a lot of talent. Vastly better as a whole than the defense we played yesterday. They give up a ton of yards on the ground. We barely even attempted to really attack them on the ground. They're pretty good against the pass. And they showed that they can cover pretty much anything. Every catch that we made was under heavy defense. Heavily contested. And that's been kind of a theme the whole season. And then you go to the offensive line as a whole and the money that you've spent to bring in some guys and everything that you've done to kind of get this offensive line situated, get this offensive line ready to play at an SEC level, it's just one thing after another. 5 sacks, again, ton of penalties, untimely sacks, um, not being able to figure out how to get in calls and checks just because of the crowd noise. We talked about, hey, they really ramped up the crowd noise even in positional drills. It was so bad you had to go to a huddle at one point in time because we couldn't communicate. And then you have Jackson. And look, I said that I felt like a lot of the traits that Jackson has whenever we brought him in, I don't know that Hugh, if you gave him a ball of clay, he could create a quarterback that could do all of the things that he wants better than what Jackson can do. But it seems like there's one small thing that he's just not quite all the way there yet. And that's just mostly mental. Being able to pull the trigger, being able to read a defense. And it may be that the offense is not really what's being called is not really helping those those small weaknesses. Maybe it's even exacerbating those small weaknesses. It's just a complete disaster. I mean, the offense is the last 2 weeks. You had a really good drive against Oklahoma, maybe 2 good drives against Oklahoma. But the regression from last week to this week is just incredibly frightening. It's amazing that you can regress that much from last week to this week. You would have thought that you took the defenses and flipped them with the way that they performed yesterday. You look like we played Oklahoma's defense yesterday. I mean, they've given up 22, 24, and 40 plus points in 3 games. And you scored 3 offensive points. 3. And really, I mean, how many times? I mean, at the end of the game, you had 2 or 3 attempts to go win the game. Didn't even come remotely close to being able to assemble something that even looks like a competent offense. That's one of the first times where I was just completely speechless. It's one of the first times where it felt like there was just absolutely no prayer after about the second or third drive that Auburn was going to be able to do anything on offense. One thing after another, and this is sort of becoming a theme, unfortunately, on the offensive side of the ball. And that's the part that's so it's just so hard to even imagine how it can be this bad. I mean, you've got how many guys on that staff that have coached with each other that are supposed to know each other in and out. And it's been nothing short of just awful. Ever since that Baylor game, man. And it turns out, I mean, their defense is just completely horrible. I mean, Oklahoma State scored close to 30 points on them. It just turned Baylor's just not a good defensive football team. They're as bad on defense as we are on offense. But ever since that game, it's just gone off a freaking cliff, like nosedive off a cliff. So can it be fixed? Let's talk about that in just a second. We'll be back right after this. Can it be fixed? Nothing is impossible. You can always find something that you think you can build off of. Now, can it be fixed to where it performs at an elite level? I think you're beyond that, unfortunately. I don't know that you can find something that drastic in 2 weeks. But with the way your defense is playing, which we'll talk about in just a second, you may not have to be elite. You just have to be serviceable. So how do you get to just be a serviceable offense? What you saw yesterday was nothing close to serviceable. The best chance we had to score was when we were on defense. That's pretty bad. That's bad. You were almost like a turnover and a score was about the best chance you had to score yesterday. So how do you become serviceable? Two games in a row now, we have gotten completely away from the quarterback run game. I know you're going to look at the box score and you're going to see that Jackson had 15 carries, and you're going to be like, what are you talking about? Jackson had 15 carries. Well, very few of those were actually like designed run plays or read plays. Most of them were scrambles, sacks, things of that nature. How many big runs against how many big runs against Baylor did Jackson have off of the read option game? I understand that teams learn how to defend that and force you to pass, but we have just completely abandoned the run game altogether. And I know I know a lot of people are going to this, and I don't think by any means yesterday, if you just ran the ball more, you win the game because there were so many other issues on the offensive side. But to build a plan around it, I think would be something that you might could lean on, you might could find that maybe, just maybe, can be serviceable. Because right now, at the rate your defensive playing, again, all you got to do is get to serviceable. We've completely abandoned the run game altogether. And it's almost like teams are and it's like teams are just basically daring us to pass the ball because we can't pass the ball. We can't get anybody open. We can't scheme anything other than one-on-one opportunities, 50-50 stuff. I think you got to start with what you can do, take what works. And if you stick with Jackson, what works are his legs right now. And that's what you got to start with, and you got to build from there. And it may look awful. You may only throw for 80 yards a game. And then you're going to have some explaining to do, I'm sure, to those guys that you paid a bunch of money to. So it's not like they're here for free. But if you want any chance at being competitive and trying to take advantage of this defense that you have, this championship level defense that you have, I think that's the only way you can really – that's the only really direction you can really go. Start with Jackson's legs and go from there. Or if you feel like there's more there in the passing game and it's just your quarterback not being able to diagnose it and make plays, maybe you look in a different direction in these next 2 weeks. I said on the show last week, this was a big turn. This could be a big turning point for Jackson, positive or negative. Tuesday was the very first time I saw Ashton Daniels taking number 2 reps. Could that have been by design? Could that have been preparing for this opportunity? I don't think you could pull Jackson in the middle of a game unless there's an injury. There's just too much to throw on to Ashton, in my opinion, at that point in time to mount a comeback completely cold. But now that you have 2 weeks to prepare, I have I've been an Auburn fan my whole life. I don't think I've ever called for a backup quarterback. Definitely haven't since I've been recording a podcast. And I think this may be the first time that I could understand if you had to do that. I think it's the first time that um, I wouldn't question things at all. Even I mean, I was happy to see Hank get a shot last year, but I think that was a mistake. I think putting him in was a mistake. But this is the first time you've had a quarterback that's a backup that's had Power 5 starting experience, and he's won games at the Power 5 level. So if you had to make that decision, he may be an even better runner than Jackson. So if you got to go to start with the quarterback legs and build from there, who knows? That could be a better option. There's too much talent on this roster, on this offensive roster to be this bad. And I know you're going to say the offensive line stinks. And as a unit right now, I think they're absolutely stinking it up. Okay. But it's hard for me to fathom that they can just be that bad. Like Xavier Chaplin was getting mock first round grades. Something's off there. Something's off on coaching there. This is 2 years in a row now where the transfer left tackle can't get down simple checks and things like that. We can't continue to point our fingers at the players if they continue to do the exact same things. Connor Lew is a NFL center. Mason Murphy has his faults, but he's serviceable at right tackle. Xavier Miller is a solid college offensive lineman. Like there are a lot of teams I think that would take any of these guys, all 5 of them. You can win with this offensive line. You have to put them in better situations. You have to help them succeed better. Because what's happening right now is not anywhere near helping that offensive line succeed. You got the talent, man. I refuse to believe it's a talent issue. I refuse to believe it. Now, I do think Jackson has some limitations as far as seeing the field and the clock in his head and just general pocket presence and the awareness and everything on the mental aspect of being a quarterback. He's got all the physical tools. It's the mental side of it that he has some severe limitations, some that I've never even really seen at Auburn before. I've never seen just the complete inability to find a receiver or make a decision. That's something I've never seen before. I don't even know how you deal with that. I don't know how that's even remotely fixable. But there's enough natural talent on that offensive roster to be better than what you saw yesterday. Vastly better. The number 8 blue chip ratio team in the country. I understand a lot of that's on defense, and that's why they're performing the way they're doing. There's just too much talent on that offensive side to be this bad. Eric Singleton had 5 catches for 56 yards, and every one of them, it felt like, was a highlight reel catch, especially the long one, the one-handed catch. Cam had 4 catches for 18 yards. I mean, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough for him. Brandon Frazier had a pretty good game. 5 catches for 28 yards. He had a big catch that was negated by a hold. But the problem with that hold was that there were other guys open in rhythm of the pass. Like, in other words, I dropped back and there were guys open, but I didn't see them, so I had to scramble out. So that makes the job on the offensive line that much harder. So they got to block a little bit longer, and you get a tug on a jersey. It's just that, I mean, that stuff is just constantly plaguing us over and over and over again. So you got to start with something that can work. Got to start with something that you can build off of. And building off of the passing game, it ain't it right now. It's got to start with the quarterback's legs and the running backs and go from there. I want to talk about the defense. I want to brag on the defense. I want to give the defense their flowers because dadgummit, they kept fighting. And that's why this is so frustrating. They freaking kept fighting when there was no hope in sight. You know, as a defensive player, you know when there's no shot that you're going to have any help from the offense. And to be able to mentally put that aside and defend this offense that's one of the best offenses in the SEC and do it over and over and over again and get stop after stop and force long field goal after long field goal, get a big turnover, almost turn it into points with no help in sight. You just kept digging, digging, digging. They're great. We were worried about the defense after the first couple of games, the communication, the secondary. Boy, they have just turned it to a whole different level, and they're playing incredible football with zero support from the other side of the ball. 4 sacks. They almost completely eliminated any threat of the run. Not almost. They completely eliminated any threat of the run from Marcel Reed, who is incredibly dangerous on the ground. I knew they could do that. I said they could do that. They do well against DJ Durkin, defends mobile quarterbacks really, really well. And if you could put Marcel Reed in a scenario where he had to beat you with his arms, he couldn't do it. And honestly, he didn't. I don't care what anybody says. The way that the way he performed in the passing game was enough for Auburn to win this game. 15 to 22 for just barely over 200 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. And for some reason, that interception, oh yeah, that was the tip pass. The tip pass, that was not a fumble, scoop and score. That was a tip pass. And that wasn't, I don't even think that was 100% on him. But they did everything they had to do, man. Le'Veon Moss, that they let a couple of runs hurt them. But that's going to happen, man. That's going to happen occasionally. They average just over 4 yards a carry. There's a lot of sacks in there now. But they did what they had to do. They did what they had to do to give their team a chance to win. Auburn was 0 of 13 on third downs, and they kept A&M to 3 of 14. That's what more do you want from them? What more can they get you? I love everything about this defense. Keiron Crawford's playing at an elite level. Xavier Atkins, holy cow. What a steal, playing at an incredibly elite level. Jared Smith, every time he goes in the game, he does fun, crazy things. Eric Winters had his first sack. They're just playing such good football. It's such a shame. championship caliber defense, in my opinion. And they never quit. There were so many times on the live stream yesterday, we were like, this is where they give up. Like, you just can't mentally keep going out there and doing it and doing it and doing it, knowing that you're not going to get any help when you give them the ball back. It's just, I can't imagine how hard that is to get up, especially when you have a very physical, long drive that you end in a missed field goal, and then you turn around and it's a 3 and out, and you got to go right back out there and do it again. It's got to be maddening, man. I hope they can keep that level of intensity and just keep chipping away and see if the offensive side can figure something out. DJ Durkin is phenomenal in every sense of the coaching, of the what's required to be a coach. He's phenomenal. If you could take the discipline and the fire that defense plays and just give a little bit to the offensive side, they'd be much, much better. They're organized. They get their calls in. They got their subs down. They know how to rotate in, and you can't sometimes even tell that you've rotated in. We were watching the live stream, and on the pick where Xavier almost took it all the way back, this was your defensive line. You had Jared Smith, you had Chris Murray, you had Malik Autry, and then you had Dallas Walker. 4 backups on the defensive line, and you turned it into a turnover. I bet y'all didn't even know that. Go back and watch it. Because you can't tell. Because when one comes out, another goes in, and they still play at an incredibly high level. DJ should be up. If they can keep this up, he needs to be up for every single award there is for assistant coaches, for coordinators. I think he's going to be a heck of a head coach again when he finally gets his shot. All in all, man, look, it's probably going to be a long season. We got to fight. We got to grind to even, I think, make a bowl game. There's no guarantee on the schedule with the way that offense is playing unless something drastically changes over the next 2 weeks. I don't know where the win is. Maybe Kentucky. Arkansas's defense is really bad, but you got to go on the road. But our offense is really bad. You play several teams that you will 100% have a better roster than. Between Georgia and Alabama, every single team you'll play, you'll have a better roster than them. Think about that. And it's hard to even imagine a gimme win in there besides Mercer. Could be rough, but we got to hang in there. We got to battle. I'm going to be here every single day breaking it down. So, guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for those that jumped in the live stream. I hope that keeps up. Those are a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun to react, to vent. It's therapy. The live chat's great. We have a lot of fun doing it. So, guys, I really appreciate you listening. Thanks for tuning in. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.